The first sign of trouble came long before the humans stepped into the great hall of the Galaxy Council. Even from the windows of their ship, they could see how heavily guarded the entire structure was. Dozens of alien species stood watch on the floating platforms that surrounded the council station. Giant mechanical eyes scanned every ship arriving, and long metallic arms moved slowly, checking for anything out of place. The humans had been here before, but this time felt different. The air between everyone felt tense, almost as if the entire galaxy was holding its breath. Inside the ship, the human delegation prepared quietly. They were not soldiers but diplomats, people trained to talk, listen, and make peace. Still, each of them carried the same serious look. They knew these negotiations could change everything. Their planet had worked very hard to earn a seat at the table, and even now, many species inside the council believed humans were too young, too unpredictable, or too stubborn to be taken seriously. When the docking clamps locked the human ship into place, the soft shake under their feet reminded them that once they stepped out, there was no turning back. The doors opened, and a bright stream of white light spilled inside. A long walkway stretched ahead, lined with curved glass walls that showed the vastness of space on either side. The humans walked forward, their steps steady and calm, but every one of them felt the heavy weight of what was coming. Alien delegates watched them from balconies above the walkway. Their eyes, some bright, some dull, some not even appearing like eyes at all, followed the humans closely. Whisper-like sounds echoed from the upper levels, though the humans could not understand the languages. It was not hard to guess what the whispers meant. Many of the council members doubted the humans. They believed humans were too new, too bold, and too unwilling to let others push them around. Still, the humans walked forward with quiet confidence. The entrance to the council hall opened slowly, almost dramatically. Inside, the room stretched wider than any stadium humans had built. Thousands of seats formed a half circle around a grand central platform. Each seat belonged to a different civilization. Some were young, some were ancient, and many had shaped galactic laws long before humans ever discovered. Faster than light travel, the human delegation approached the central platform, knowing that every species in the room was studying them. The platform rose slightly, lifting them so everyone could see them clearly. A soft voice echoed through the hall, spoken by the council's speaker, an alien who floated without legs, its form glowing faintly. It announced the start of the meeting in a tone that sounded polite, but carried a sharp edge. The humans listened, respectfully before stepping forward. Their lead representative began to speak, clearly and calmly. They explained why humans had come today. They asked for fair access to trade routes, open resource agreements, and protection rights that other younger species were already given. They stated their case with logic, evidence, and a steady voice. There was no anger, no pride, only fairness and reason. At first, the room remained quiet. The humans thought this was a good sign. But then the replies started. One alien representative stood and questioned every human request harshly, as if humans had no right to ask for anything. Another demanded that humans offer more resources in exchange, far more than was reasonable. Others suggested complicated rules that only humans would be forced to follow. A few even mocked the idea that humans deserved equal treatment. The humans stayed polite, but even they could feel the tone of the room shifting. It was becoming clear that the council did not plan to negotiate fairly. Instead, they were trying to pressure the humans into accepting one-sided terms. The humans had prepared for this possibility, but experiencing it directly was different. The unfairness in the air was sharp enough to feel. Still, they answered each point calmly. They corrected false statements. They explained misunderstandings. They reminded the council of past agreements. They showed data proving that fair trade would benefit everyone, not just humans, But many council members seemed uninterested in fairness. As one alien repeated the same unreasonable demand for the third time, the humans exchanged subtle glances. They had practiced these signals before. It meant, stay calm, stay steady. Don't let them pull you into anger. Another alien representative raised their voice and suggested that if humans refused the unfair terms, the council might consider placing restrictions on human travel. The threat hung in the air like a cold shadow. The humans did not respond immediately. They stood quietly, letting the silence replace the noise. The entire hall watched them. Some species leaned forward, curious to see how humans would react. Others smirked, expecting humans to panic or argue. Instead, the human representative simply breathed in and continued speaking in the same calm tone. They did not accept the threat. They did not show fear. They simply stated again what humans were asking for. Nothing more than what was fair. Nothing less than what other species received. That calmness unsettled many council members. They were used to younger civilizations giving in quickly. They were used to fear. Humans, however, did not seem intimidated. That alone changed the atmosphere. While the main debate continued, a few friendly species watched from the side. They had worked with humans before and respected them. Some tried to speak up in support, but the council leaders quickly silenced them. It was clear the council wanted to control the negotiation tightly. Hours passed. Questions, counter-questions, demands, and arguments filled the room. The humans never raised their voices, never lost their patience, but inside they could feel frustration building. They had come here hoping the council would act with reason and equality. Instead, it felt like the council saw humans as a threat or an inconvenience. Turning point happened when one of the oldest council members stood and announced that the humans must accept a new rule if they wanted trade rights. The rule would force humans to hand over control of several important space routes their species had discovered and developed. The council framed it as for the stability of the galaxy, but everyone knew it meant taking advantage of humans' hard work. The hall went silent. Even those who disliked humans knew the council was asking for too much. The humans looked at each other. There was no confusion between them. They all understood what this meant. This was not negotiation. This was pressure. This was a warning disguised as politics. Their lead representative stepped forward again. The council waited, expecting humans to argue or beg for better terms. Instead, they spoke with a tone so steady that even distant species leaned closer to hear. They thanked the council for the discussion. They stated clearly that humans wanted peace, cooperation, and fairness. Then, with calm finality, they explained that humans would not accept any agreement that forced them to surrender their rights, resources, or independence. A murmur rose from the seats. The humans didn't waver. The Speaker of the Council asked sharply if humans were refusing the terms. The hall seemed to tighten, ready for conflict, but the humans answered simply. They said that they were not refusing cooperation. They were refusing unfair treatment. They said humans would return to discuss equal agreements any time the council was ready, but they would not sit at a table designed to push them down. Then came the words that froze the entire hall. The humans announced that if these were the council's final terms, then the humans would walk away from the negotiation. The hall grew completely silent. Every being in the room stared at them. Some with shock, some with disbelief, some with quiet respect. No young species had ever said something like that to the Galaxy Council. Most species only survived by staying small and obedient. But humans stood there, unshaken. The council speaker demanded a reconsideration. The humans politely declined. Then they did the unthinkable. They turned around, stepped off the platform, and began walking toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed softly in the silent hall. No one stopped them. No one expected them to actually leave, but they did. They walked straight out of the Galaxy Council Hall, their backs straight, their faces calm, their decision final. Behind them, the galaxy's most powerful leaders sat stunned, realizing something they had never imagined. Humans had just walked away, and the cost of that choice would come far later, hitting the council harder than they ever expected. After leaving the council hall, the humans did not rush. They walked calmly down the long corridors, their steps steady. Outside, the air of the docking platform was quiet, almost empty. Most of the alien guards were watching them, not daring to approach. They had never seen a species leave so boldly, and that quiet confidence made even the most disciplined guard hesitate. The human delegation reached their ship. The metallic doors closed slowly behind them, creating a small sanctuary of silence. Once inside, the humans allowed themselves a moment to breathe. Some rubbed the back of their necks, feeling the tension of hours of careful diplomacy finally ease. Others simply stood by the windows, staring at the glowing council station floating in space. It seemed massive, almost impossible to challenge. And yet, the humans had done it. They had walked away. The captain of the human team spoke quietly, breaking the silence. "They thought we would give in," they said. "They thought fear would make us obey. They were wrong." Their voice was calm, but carried the weight of authority. Every member of the delegation nodded. They knew this was only the beginning. Leaving the council hall did not solve anything. The galaxy was still watching, and the council would not forget Dot as they prepared to depart. Communications buzzed. Small council observers had tried to reach them with messages, asking them to reconsider, to return to the table, to accept a compromise. The humans read the messages carefully, but did not respond. Each message was polite on the surface, but underneath they were full of subtle threats, hints at economic restrictions, and warnings of isolation. Humans recognized the strategy, intimidation mixed with diplomacy. But they remained unshaken. They would not respond to pressure. Not now, not ever. Once their ship powered up, the human team finally took off. The engines glowed, and the ship lifted away from the docking platform smoothly. Below them, the council station appeared smaller as they moved farther away. Yet, the humans were not celebrating. They were analyzing, planning, and preparing for the consequences that would surely follow. They knew the council would act. The question was how fast and how badly. Other species would watch carefully. Some might quietly support humans. Others would follow the council's lead, avoiding anything that might be seen as siding with a rebellious species. Humans understood the political games better than most. They were not naive. Inside the ship, the humans gathered in a small conference area. Maps of trade routes, resource points, and interstellar highways flickered on the screens in front of them. They reviewed every agreement, every rule, every possible reaction the council could take. They were careful to think ahead. Walking away was not just a bold gesture. It was a calculated risk. One member pointed out, "They may try to block our trade routes or impose tariffs. They might pressure other species to cut ties with us. They could even threaten military action in border areas." Another replied, "Yes, but we know their weaknesses. We know which alliances are fragile. We know which species rely on their approval." Walking away shows them that humans can survive and even thrive outside their control. They spent hours analyzing. Every possibility was considered. Their plan was not just to survive. It was to demonstrate that humans could succeed on their own terms. That thought gave them strength. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the council was in chaos. Back in the hall, council members argued among themselves. Some were furious, insisting that humans must be punished immediately. Others argued that aggressive action would backfire. The young species in the room whispered to each other, inspired in secret by the humans' courage. They had never seen a species stand up like that before. News of the humans' departure spread quickly. Holographic broadcasts reached distant planets. Some aliens celebrated quietly, admiring the boldness of this young species. Others frowned, worried about the precedent it set. If one species could challenge the council and leave, what would stop others from doing the same? Humans were not unaware of the effect their actions had. As they traveled farther from the council station, their communications team monitored reactions. Every message, every movement, every change in trade and political chatter was analyzed. Humans wanted to know how their departure would reshape the council's influence and the young galaxy's perception of them. Days passed. The council had not yet acted directly, but subtle consequences began to appear. Trade offers humans had expected were delayed or quietly canceled. Some patrol ships began appearing near border routes, moving slowly, observing human travel patterns. The council was testing, probing, measuring the humans' response. Inside their ship, humans prepared for these pressures. They trained, they simulated scenarios, and they reinforced their supply networks. Their focus was never on revenge. It was on stability, security, and proving that humans could thrive even under pressure. The human team understood one principle clearly. Fear and intimidation could not dictate their future. During one long shift, a young human delegate spoke, almost in awe. "Do you think they expected us to leave?" they asked quietly. The captain smiled faintly. "No, they expected obedience. That is what they are used to. But we are not like them. Humans do not bow to fear. We do not surrender because someone larger or older demands it. We negotiate when it is fair. We act when it is right. And we always remember our worth." The young delegate nodded, feeling inspired. Watching the council crumble under the realization that humans were independent gave them hope. Humans had always been underestimated, but now the galaxy was beginning to notice. Weeks passed, and humans began reaching out to alternative allies. Other species, who had quietly supported them in the past, now offered trade agreements, resource-sharing deals, and protective alliances. These species had respected humans' decision to walk away. They saw that humans were strong, disciplined, and fair. They saw that humans were not afraid of consequences, and that courage earned respect faster than fear ever could. Meanwhile, the council struggled. Their threats had little effect. Trade delays caused frustration in member species, dependent on human resources. Border patrols had to be rerouted to monitor human ships that were moving freely. Every attempt to pressure humans only created internal debates and unrest among council members. It became clear that humans' simple act of walking away had a larger effect than anyone had predicted. In private meetings, some council members admitted that humans had changed the rules of the game. They realized that no longer could they rely on fear to control younger species. The humans had shown that strength, confidence, and preparation could counter decades of established authority. Even in their absence, humans' presence was reshaping the galaxy. Inside the human ship, the delegation reviewed whole progress. They had achieved more than they expected. Their goal had never been to dominate the council, but to prove that humans deserved respect and fair treatment. By walking away, they had forced the council to reconsider its approach, and at the same time, they had strengthened their own position. One night, as the ship traveled past a dense field of stars, the captain addressed the team. "This is just the beginning. The council will try again, in one form or another. But we are ready. We know our worth. We know our strength. We do not need their approval to succeed. And we will continue to act with honor, fairness, and courage. That is what it means to be human." A quiet hum of agreement filled the room. Everyone understood. The council might have power, but humans had vision, unity, and resilience. They had chosen to walk away from unfairness, and in doing so, they had not lost anything. They had gained dignity, respect, and a growing reputation throughout the galaxy. And far beyond, unseen by the humans, the Council began to calculate. How would they regain influence over a species that refused to be controlled? How would they protect their own power without pushing others toward independence? The answers were not clear, and that uncertainty worked in humans' favor. For now, the humans continued their journey through space, building alliances, securing resources, and proving that leaving the Council had been the right choice. Every decision, every careful action, every calm response to threats strengthened their position. They were not reckless, and they were not aggressive. They were simply human intelligent, resilient, and unafraid to walk away when fairness demanded it, and the galaxy watched. The humans had been traveling for days through the vast emptiness of space, but they did not feel lost or alone. Their mission was clear, and every member of the delegation remained alert and focused. Even after leaving the Council, they had responsibilities, maintaining trade networks, protecting their borders, and building alliances with other species who respected them. Every decision they made was careful, precise, and thoughtful. They were determined to show that walking away had not been reckless, it had been wise. Inside the ship, life was routine but purposeful. Some humans studied maps of trade routes, marking potential partners and regions where they could safely operate. Others monitored communications, listening for news from the Council or any disturbances in the galaxy that might affect them. Even small updates were analyzed, discussed, and turned into actionable plans. Humans knew that preparation was their strongest weapon. One afternoon, the captain called a meeting in the main conference room. The walls glowed softly with screens showing maps, data, and alerts. Every member of the delegation gathered around the table, looking serious but not worried. They had learned that the galaxy would test them in many ways, and they were ready. The Council will react, the captain said calmly, and probably sooner than we expect. They are powerful, but they rely on control, not creativity or adaptability. We need to be ready for their moves. We must anticipate what they might try and prepare countermeasures without becoming aggressive ourselves. A younger delegate nodded. We have already seen delays in trade, and some species are hesitant to deal with us openly. We need to strengthen our connections quietly, so we are not dependent on any one Council-controlled route. The captain smiled slightly. Exactly. Independence is our strength. The Council may think that by isolating us, they can pressure us into submission. But we will not let that happen. We will survive, and we will thrive. That is what walking away meant. It was not rejection. It was freedom. Freedom to act, freedom to plan, and freedom to show the galaxy what humans are capable of. Hours passed as the humans worked through every possible scenario. They knew that other species were watching, some with fear, some with hope. Allies who had quietly supported them began to make small moves, offering resources and sharing intelligence. These gestures, subtle and careful, gave humans more confidence. They realized that strength was not only in their own actions, but in the trust and respect they could inspire. Far from the Council station, news of the humans' departure caused ripples across the galaxy. Some Council members were furious, demanding immediate sanctions, but the older, wiser members argued that heavy-handed action could backfire. The more they debated, the clearer it became that humans had disrupted the Council's usual order. The Council relied on obedience and fear, and humans had refused both. That simple act created uncertainty among species that had never questioned the Council before. The humans did not wait for the Council's next move. They acted quietly, securing alliances, arranging trade agreements, and reinforcing their defenses. Every step was carefully considered. They were not trying to provoke the Council, but they understood that independence came with responsibility. Being free meant having to protect their own interests, sometimes without help from anyone else. During a long shift, the communication officer noticed unusual signals coming from one of the border routes humans controlled. At first, it seemed routine, but closer inspection revealed several unmarked ships tracking human movements. The Council was testing them. The humans remained calm, noting the ship's positions and speeds. They did not panic. Instead, they adjusted their routes subtly, showing that they could move freely and safely, even under observation. One of the senior delegates spoke, breaking the silence. "This is exactly what we expected. They want to intimidate us. But notice our movements are safe, efficient, and not reactive. That shows strength. They cannot control us, and they cannot predict us fully. That is their weakness." The captain nodded. "Every species is learning something from humans right now. We are showing them that independence is possible. We are demonstrating that courage and careful planning can win respect where fear cannot." Days turned into weeks, and humans began to see the broader effects of their actions. Trade routes they had abandoned or left temporarily were being reorganized by other species, some of whom approached humans directly, hoping to establish a fair partnership. Many of these species had quietly observed the Council for years and had grown frustrated with the rigidity and self-interest of its leaders. Humans walking away gave them hope, a reminder that one species could refuse to be bullied and still succeed. Inside their ship, humans celebrated small victories. A new alliance agreement, a successful trade negotiation, or a safe passage through a previously restricted area became evidence that their choice was correct. They did not boast, but there was quiet satisfaction. Every achievement reminded them that leaving the Council had been a necessary act, not a reckless one. The delegation also focused on training. Some humans practiced communication with alien species, ensuring that misunderstandings could be avoided. Others worked on logistical challenges, improving supply chains and maintaining efficiency across their network. Even small improvements mattered. Every detail reinforced their independence and resilience. At one point, a young delegate asked the captain quietly, "Do you think they will ever accept us as equals?" The captain considered the question carefully. "Perhaps. Some may. Others never will. But equality is not given. It is earned. And what we are doing now, walking away, acting with integrity, building respect, this is how humans earn equality. Not by fear, not by obedience, but by demonstrating value and strength." Humans also took time to reflect on themselves. The delegation spent hours discussing lessons from past interactions, analyzing mistakes, and planning improvements. They did not pretend to be perfect. They accepted that even a species as capable as humans must learn and adapt. That humility, combined with confidence, gave them an edge that the Council could not predict. Meanwhile, the Council's internal debates continued. Some members warned that heavy pressure on humans might unify younger species against them. Others feared that any attempt at open confrontation could fail and damage the Council's reputation. The humans, by simply walking away, had forced the Council to question itself. That was a level of influence far beyond the immediate negotiation table. The humans had also begun sending small exploratory missions to sectors previously controlled by Council regulations. These missions were careful, cautious, and always prepared. Humans moved quietly but efficiently, mapping resources, checking for risks, and securing new opportunities. Every step reinforced their independence and capability. As months passed, humans started to notice subtle changes. Some species that had always followed Council directives now approached humans directly, seeking trade or cooperation. A few offered advice, quietly sharing knowledge that the Council might have withheld. Humans listened, learned, and incorporated this intelligence into their planning. They were careful not to exploit these species, but to build trust. That trust became a silent shield, protecting them from council interference. During one quiet evening in the ship's observation deck, a senior delegate looked out at the stars and spoke softly, almost to themselves. "We thought we were small. We thought we were weak. But look at us now. We are building a path no one expected. We are changing the way others see humans, not with force, but with courage, patience, and intelligence." The captain, standing nearby, nodded in agreement. Walking away was not the end. It was the beginning. Every decision we make from now on will shape how humans are seen throughout the galaxy. We must remain steady, fair, and determined. That is how true strength is shown. Even as they worked and planned, the humans remained aware of risks. The council might strike in unexpected ways. Trade restrictions could tighten suddenly. New political alliances could emerge to challenge human independence. But humans were prepared. They had already learned that fear and threats did not dictate their future. Only careful action, courage, and intelligence did that by the end of Part 3. The humans had proven something essential. Walking away had not been a failure or an act of rebellion. It had been a statement. They were not afraid of the council, and they were not dependent on its approval. Their independence was real, and it was growing stronger every day. The galaxy was changing. The council was unsettled. And humans, quietly and steadily, were showing that they could survive, thrive, and shape the future on their own terms. Even though the humans had been away from the council for weeks, they knew the consequences of their choice were only beginning. The galaxy was a complicated place, full of species who watched, waited, and measured every action. Humans were still young in the eyes of many, but they had already proved something important. They would not be controlled. Inside their ship, the human delegation remained busy. Every day brought reports from the outer colonies, updates on trade, and occasional alerts about council movements near border routes. The humans did not panic. They approached every challenge with calm, careful analysis. If the council tried to limit trade or influence allies, humans would respond, but never recklessly. They were learning to act like strategists, not react like frightened newcomers. One morning, as they reviewed data from a nearby system, a young delegate spoke up. "We have ships observing our movements again. They are testing us, making sure we do not stray into restricted areas." The captain looked at the screens, noting the positions and paths of the council ships. "Exactly," they said. "And notice how we are moving carefully, safely, and efficiently. They can observe, but they cannot control. We are proving that independence is possible without aggression." That is the key. Humans began sending small exploratory missions to systems that had been largely ignored by the council. These missions were not dangerous. They carried supplies, resources, and teams trained to handle unexpected situations, but they were highly strategic. Every new route opened, every new alliance formed, was a demonstration that humans could operate without the council's permission. As these missions progressed, humans noticed something interesting. Other species, long frustrated by council bureaucracy and favoritism, started approaching them quietly. Some offered resources, others suggested joint trade agreements, and a few even shared intelligence about areas where the council had no real control. Humans treated all offers carefully, asking questions, verifying facts, and only agreeing when it was fair. They were not greedy, and they were not reckless. Every decision reinforced their reputation as capable, intelligent, and reliable partners. Meanwhile, the council was growing more restless. Inside the main hall, debates had become heated. Some leaders argued for sanctions or blockades, believing humans could be punished into submission. Others warned that any aggressive move could backfire. The council had always relied on fear to maintain order, and humans had shown them that fear could be resisted. That alone was unsettling. Back on the human ship, the captain called another strategy meeting. The Council may try something more direct soon, they said. We do not know when or where, but we must be ready. They may attempt economic pressure, blockades, or even provoke other species to challenge us. Our job is to stay calm, anticipate their moves, and act wisely. A senior delegate added, We have allies now, quiet as they are. Their support is growing. If the Council tries to isolate us, we are prepared. Independence is not just about standing alone. It is about building networks, trust, and cooperation beyond the Council's reach. Over the next few days, humans tested these alliances carefully. They arranged supply exchanges, coordinated resource-sharing plans, and reinforced communications across multiple systems. They did not rush. Every action was deliberate, demonstrating that humans could maintain independence while still respecting other species' needs. One evening, the captain walked to the observation deck. Outside, stars stretched endlessly, distant planets glimmered, and nebulae swirled in colors humans had never imagined. They reflected quietly on how far humans had come. Weeks ago, leaving the Council had felt risky, almost frightening. Now, it felt like the first step in proving that humans could shape their own destiny. The young delegate who had asked about the Council's acceptance months ago approached. Do you think they are watching us right now? They asked softly. The captain smiled. Of course. They always are. But notice they are watching, and we are still moving freely. Every observation they make shows them something important. Humans are not afraid. Humans can act with intelligence, strategy, and patience. That is something they have not seen before. The next few weeks brought subtle signs of change. Some Council allies who had once been hesitant now reached out with small offers of cooperation. Trade routes that had seemed blocked slowly reopened under agreements that respected human independence. Even species who had followed the Council's rules without question began to communicate directly with humans. They had seen courage and intelligence in action, and it inspired them. Inside the ship, humans analyzed every move carefully. They knew that maintaining independence required constant effort. They practiced communications, planned emergency routes, and reviewed resources. Every member of the delegation understood their role. None acted recklessly, but each knew that vigilance and preparation were key to survival. Then, unexpectedly, humans received a transmission from a sector council had influenced heavily in the past. The message was polite, almost casual, but its tone carried a subtle warning. Humans studied the words carefully, decoding the hidden meaning. It was clear. The Council was beginning to test the limits, seeing if humans could be pressured into returning to the old order. The captain gathered the delegation. This is exactly what we expected, they said. They will test us again and again. But testing is different from control. We respond with strategy, not fear. We respond with intelligence, not anger. This is how humans show strength. Hours turned into days as humans monitored trade patterns, political communications, and resource movements. Every Council maneuver was countered thoughtfully. If blockades appeared, humans used alternative routes. If offers were delayed or denied, they found others who could provide similar resources. Every step strengthened their position, proving that leaving the Council had not weakened them. One morning, a junior delegate pointed out a significant shift. Some species that used to follow the Council blindly are now approaching us directly. They trust humans more than they trust the Council. The captain nodded. Exactly. That is the impact of walking away. We showed that independence is possible. We demonstrated courage, fairness, and intelligence. That inspires others. Fear cannot do that. Authority alone cannot do that. Only action and integrity can. As humans continued their careful movements, they also looked at the long-term picture. They were building infrastructure, securing alliances, and creating a reputation that no single council directive could erase. They had learned to act with patience, knowing that immediate results were not as important as lasting influence. During a quiet evening, the captain addressed the delegation. "We have already changed the galaxy's perception of humans. Some see us as courageous, others as capable, and many more as unpredictable. That unpredictability is our strength. It keeps others honest. We do not act rashly, but we do act wisely. And every step proves that humans are capable of independence, respect, and influence." Even as the council plotted, humans moved forward. They expanded trade networks, strengthened alliances, and maintained a presence in strategic areas. Every action reinforced the lesson they had demonstrated weeks ago. Walking away from unfairness was not weakness, but a display of strength and foresight. By the end of Part 4, humans had reached a critical point. They were no longer just surviving outside the Council's control, they were thriving. Their independence was respected quietly by allies, observed nervously by rivals, and feared subtly by those who relied too heavily on authority. Humans had proven that courage, intelligence, and careful planning could overcome threats, control, and intimidation. The galaxy had begun to change, because humans had chosen to walk away, and they were ready for whatever came next. Humans had been operating independently for months now, and the effects of their departure from the Council were beginning to show. The Council had hoped that walking away would weaken them, make them desperate, or force them to return. Instead, humans were thriving. They moved freely across space, traded with species who had quietly admired their courage, and built networks that did not rely on Council approval. Every success irritated the Council and encouraged other species to take notice. Inside their ship, the human delegation held a planning session. The walls glowed softly with maps, data streams, and live reports from allied sectors. Every piece of information was carefully analyzed. They had learned long ago that the Council could be patient, waiting for the right moment to test humans' resolve. That meant humans had to be prepared for anything at any time. "Look at these routes," said one of the senior delegates. "The Council tried to block a few of them, but we found alternatives. Trade is continuing, and some species have approached us directly, offering better terms than before. Our independence is stronger than ever." The captain nodded, studying the screens. "Exactly. That is what leaving the Council did. We showed that we do not rely on fear or approval. We rely on preparation, fairness, and intelligence. They cannot control us, and their attempts to intimidate only strengthen our position." It was not only trade routes that had shifted. Political influence was also changing. Some species who had long followed the Council's directives quietly began to make their own decisions. They reached out to humans for advice, collaboration, and trade. Even the smallest gestures of cooperation sent a clear message. Humans could act freely, and other species were willing to follow a path that honored independence and fairness. The Council noticed. In their massive chambers, heated arguments erupted. Some members demanded immediate sanctions or blockades. They wanted to punish humans for defying authority. Others warned that harsh measures would backfire. They worried that the humans' growing network of alliances could challenge Council influence across multiple systems. The Council had relied on fear for centuries, and humans had shown that fear could be resisted. Meanwhile, humans continued their careful expansion. They sent exploratory missions into regions that had been considered dangerous or unprofitable. These missions were small, methodical, and always prepared for unexpected obstacles. Every successful mission proved to the galaxy that humans could navigate challenges with intelligence and strategy, not just force. During one particularly long session, the communications officer reported something unusual. "We are receiving messages from species in Council-controlled systems," they said. "They are hesitant, but they want to speak with us. They've observed our actions and want to explore alternatives." The captain leaned forward. This is what we expected. Humans do not force alliances. We build them through trust and reliability. These species see that independence works. They see that they can act without waiting for council approval. That is influence without confrontation, and it is more powerful than any threat. As humans worked, the council began to experience unexpected consequences. Trade disruptions appeared in systems that relied on council control. Some sectors reported shortages, while others faced delays in resources that had previously moved freely. The council's inability to enforce total control exposed weaknesses, and member species began questioning whether strict obedience was truly necessary. Humans monitored these changes carefully. They did not exploit them aggressively, but studied them to understand the evolving dynamics. Every piece of information strengthened their decision-making. They were building a network of stability independent of the council, showing the galaxy that preparation, intelligence, and courage could achieve results that fear never could. One morning, a young delegate asked, "Do you think the council understands what we are doing?" The captain smiled. They understand perfectly, but they cannot stop it. They rely on intimidation, control, and influence. We rely on reason, preparation, and respect. They may be powerful, but power without wisdom can crumble. Our actions remind the galaxy that strength comes in many forms, not just authority. Humans also focused on internal development. They trained for emergencies, strengthened supply chains, and ensured communication networks were secure. They reviewed past missions and identified areas for improvement. Every step was deliberate. They were not just surviving. They were learning, adapting, and growing stronger. Weeks later, the council attempted a subtle move. They delayed shipments that humans had previously relied upon, hoping to create shortages or force negotiation. Humans anticipated this. They had alternative sources, backup routes, and alliances ready. Not a single mission was disrupted. The council's attempt to intimidate had failed. The delegation gathered in the strategy room to review their progress. "Every move they make only strengthens us," said one senior member. "They hope to control, but we have shown independence." Other species are watching. Some are inspired. Others are reconsidering their loyalty. "This is bigger than we thought." The captain agreed. Yes, walking away was not just a statement to the council. It was a signal to the galaxy. It showed that humans act with integrity, preparation, and courage. Authority alone cannot force obedience when intelligence and strategy guide actions. We are teaching a lesson without raising weapons, without making threats. Humans also began sending emissaries to other independent sectors. They were careful, polite, and methodical. These emissaries reinforced the humans' reputation as fair, reliable, and capable. Other species saw that humans could be trusted. That trust spread quietly but effectively, creating a web of influence the council could not easily disrupt. Back in the council, frustration was growing. Some members admitted privately that humans had changed the balance of power. Attempts to control humans had failed, and every day of inaction allowed humans to strengthen alliances and expand influence. Fear and authority, once the council's greatest tools, were ineffective against the human approach. Humans continued to focus on progress rather than confrontation. They reinforced colonies, improved technology, and built redundancy in every system. Every success was quietly noted by allies and rivals alike. Humans were showing that independence could be managed intelligently, without aggression or chaos. During one late-night planning session, a young delegate asked, "Do you think the council will ever respect humans?" The captain looked out at the stars, thinking, "Respect comes from demonstration, not fear. We have already shown courage and intelligence. We have built alliances and proven that independence is possible. Respect is growing, slowly but surely." They may never admit it openly, but it is happening. Humans also began seeing subtle shifts in council behavior. They noticed hesitation in decisions, delays in responses, and disagreements among members. The council had always relied on obedience from younger species, but humans had forced them to reconsider. Even without open confrontation, humans' actions were reshaping the galaxy dot as months passed. Humans' influence continued to expand. Trade agreements, alliances, and partnerships grew steadily. Every success reinforced the decision to walk away from the council months earlier. Humans had not only survived, they had thrived. They had proven that courage, careful planning, and fairness could achieve results that fear and intimidation never could. The delegation gathered one evening to review the overall situation. "We have achieved more than we imagined," said one senior member. "Our independence is secure, our influence is growing, and the council is being forced to adjust." Walking away was the right choice. The captain nodded. Yes, independence is never easy. Challenges will come, but humans have shown that preparation, courage, and intelligence are stronger than fear and authority. The galaxy is watching. Our actions speak louder than words. That is the real cost to the council. They underestimated us, and it is costing them credibility, influence, and trust. Even as humans continued their careful work, the council scrambled to respond. They had hoped to punish or intimidate humans, but every attempt only reinforced the humans' reputation. Allies quietly supported them. Trade continued, and influence shifted. The council realized, too late, that their old methods could not contain a species that acted with integrity and intelligence. By the end of Part 5, the humans had demonstrated the full impact of their decision to walk away. They were independent, respected quietly by allies, observed cautiously by rivals, and feared subtly by those who relied too heavily on authority. They had not acted aggressively, but their actions had consequences far beyond the negotiation table. The council had learned, slowly and painfully, that underestimating humans came with a high cost. And humans, calm, steady, and prepared, were ready for whatever challenges came next.